The night was dark and heavy with rain. The old barn stood at the edge of John Miller's farm, its wooden walls creaking as the wind howled. John had just finished checking the animals when he heard a strange noise. It was not the sound of a cow or a horse. It was something sharper, almost like metal scraping against stone. He froze in place, his lantern trembling in his hand. The sound came again, louder this time. From the far corner of the barn, John slowly stepped forward, his boots pressing into the wet hay. The storm outside covered his footsteps. But his heart beat so hard he thought it might give him away. He reached the corner and gasped. There, lying on the ground, was something he had never seen before. It was a girl, but not like any girl from Earth. Her skin glowed faintly, almost silver under the flickering lantern light. Her hair was long and dark, yet strands of it shimmered with colors he could not name. Her body was covered in strange wounds, deep cuts that seemed to burn instead of bleed. And around her lay broken pieces of metal, twisted and glowing faint blue. Like shattered armor, John stumbled back, nearly dropping his lantern. For a moment, fear gripped him. Every story he had ever heard about strange lights in the sky, about government warnings and alien sightings, came rushing back to him. But then he looked again, and he saw her face. She was young, fragile, breathing hard as if every breath hurt. And in that moment, fear gave way to something else: compassion. He knelt down beside her, ignoring the chill that ran through his body. "Can you hear me?" he whispered, not knowing why he even spoke. Her eyes flickered open, glowing faintly like stars. For a second, John felt as if the entire universe was staring back at him. She tried to speak, but only a broken sound came from her lips. He leaned closer, and to his shock, she whispered one word. John, his blood ran cold. How could she know his name? He had never seen her before, never spoken to her, but the way she said it, weak yet certain, made him shiver. He swallowed hard and shook his head. You need help," he said, trying to steady his voice. The girl closed her eyes again, but her hand moved, trembling. She reached for the lantern light as if afraid of the darkness. John noticed her hand was not quite human. Her fingers were longer, with faint patterns glowing along the skin like lines of fire. He hesitated, then carefully lifted her in his arms. She was lighter than he expected, almost as if she were made of air. He carried her to the soft hay, trying to make her comfortable. The storm outside roared louder, thunder shaking the wooden beams of the barn. John felt as if the world itself knew something strange had entered his life. He looked at the broken metal pieces scattered on the floor. They pulsed faintly, giving off a low hum that made his ears ring. He had no idea what they were, but he knew they were not from Earth. For a moment, he thought about running to the phone, calling the sheriff, but a deep fear stopped him. If the government found her, what would they do? Would they help her or lock her away? He remembered the look in her eyes, the way she had whispered his name. No, he could not hand her over. Not yet. He fetched water from the corner and gently placed a cloth on her forehead. She stirred, whispering words in a language he could not understand. The sounds were soft, like music, yet filled with pain. John sat beside her, not knowing what to do. Every minute that passed, he felt more certain his life would never be the same again. Suddenly, a sharp flash lit up the night outside. It was not lightning, it was something brighter, more focused. John rushed to the barn door and peered out into the storm. Above the trees, he saw an unnatural light moving across the sky. It flickered, shifted, and vanished into the clouds. His hands trembled as he shut the door quickly. He turned back to the girl. Her eyes were open again, glowing faintly, watching him. She spoke in a weak whisper, her voice trembling. "They are coming." John's heart stopped. He did not know who they were, but the fear in her eyes told him enough. The storm raged outside. But the real danger was only beginning, and in the quiet of his barn. John Miller realized he had just stepped into something far greater than himself. The storm had passed, but the barn was still heavy with silence. John sat beside the strange girl, watching her shallow breaths rise and fall. Every now and then, her skin shimmered with faint light. Like moonlight on water, it was both beautiful and frightening. He had never seen anything like her, and yet, he could not bring himself to look away. He had questions burning inside him. Who was she? Where had she come from? Why had she whispered his name? But each time he tried to ask, her eyes closed again. Her body too weak to answer, so he waited, his lantern dim beside him. The night stretching into endless hours. By dawn, she stirred. Her voice was soft, broken, but clearer than before. "Where?" "Am I?" she whispered. John swallowed and answered, "You're safe." "In my barn," the girl blinked, confused. Her silver eyes glancing at the wooden walls, the hay, the morning light slipping through the cracks. She looked fragile, but her gaze held a strange depth. As if she carried centuries within her. "You should rest," John said gently. But she shook her head weakly, her hand rising, pointing toward the scattered metal pieces on the floor. "Hide." "Those?" she whispered, panic flickering in her eyes. John obeyed without hesitation, gathering the glowing shards and covering them under a pile of old cloth. The metal hummed softly, almost alive, and he shivered as he touched it when he turned back. She was watching him closely, her eyes sharp despite her pain. "They will come," she said, her voice trembling. "Who will come?" John asked. Her lips parted, but she struggled for words, as if the language itself betrayed her. Finally, she said, "Hunters. Not human." The words hung in the air like a shadow. John felt the barn grow colder, as though unseen eyes already pressed against its walls. He tried to steady himself. "Then why are they after you?" The girl lowered her head, her hair falling over her glowing face. Her silence was answer enough whatever secret she carried. It was dangerous. John clenched his fists, torn between fear and the strange duty rising inside him. He barely knew her, yet he felt he could not abandon her. Something about her presence pulled at his soul. Later that day, John slipped back into his house. Pretending everything was normal, the neighbors were already gossiping about strange lights in the storm. One man at the gas station swore he had seen soldiers driving down the road at night. John kept his head low, bought supplies, and returned quickly. But all the while, he felt the weight of unseen eyes, something or someone was already searching. Back in the barn, the girl was awake. Sitting up with difficulty, she touched the wound on her side. And John noticed faint blue light seeping from the cut instead of blood. He stepped forward, alarmed. "You're hurt worse than I thought." But she shook her head, whispering, "Not fatal." Yet her calmness was chilling, as if pain was an old companion to her. "Do you have a name?" John asked. She hesitated, then spoke. "Lyra." The sound of it was soft, musical, yet heavy with sorrow. John repeated it under his breath, and she gave the faintest nod. For the first time, she almost looked human. Almost looked like a lost child far from home as the day stretched. Lyra tried to teach him fragments of her language. Her words were strange, filled with tones that seemed to echo in the air. When John repeated them clumsily, she gave a small smile, the first he had seen. But her smile quickly faded as she whispered, "They will find me soon." John felt his chest tighten. He wanted to promise her safety, but deep down he was not sure if he could. That night, as the barn grew quiet, John heard something outside. Engines, faint at first, then clearer. Rolling down the dirt road, his heart leaped into his throat. He rushed to the window and saw dark vehicles moving slowly. Lights sweeping the fields. They were searching. The sound of radios crackled faintly in the distance. Men stepped out, dressed in heavy gear, scanning the countryside. John's hands shook as he returned to Lyra. "They're here," he whispered. Her eyes widened, glowing brighter in the dark. She gripped his arm, her voice urgent. "Do not let them see me." The fear in her tone was not for herself alone, carried something larger. Something that touched the fate of all. John quickly covered her with blankets, hiding the glow of her skin. He pushed hay bales in front of the broken armor. Trying to make the barn look ordinary, the sound of footsteps crunched closer. Voices called out, sharp, demanding, searching. John's chest burned as he tried to stay calm. He opened the barn door slightly. Pretending to yawn as if just checking on his animals, two men stood there. Their faces hidden by helmets, their eyes cold. "Seen anything strange last night?" one asked. John forced a laugh. Strange is just another word for storm. "Isn't it?" The men stared at him for a long, heavy moment. Then one of them stepped closer. Peering past him into the barn, John's breath caught in his throat. Lyra was hidden in the shadows, her glowing eyes barely covered. One slip, one wrong move, and everything would be over. The soldier's hand reached for the door. And John prayed silently, his heart racing. If they found her, it would not only end her life, might change the world forever. The night air was sharp with fear. John stood frozen at the barn door. The soldier's hand gripping the wood, his eyes narrowing as he tried to peer inside. Every second felt like a blade pressed against John's throat. Behind him, Lyra was hidden under blankets. Her glowing skin dimmed, but not gone. If the soldier saw even the faintest shimmer, it would all be over then, from the field. Another man shouted, "Clear here!" The soldier at the door hesitated. His hand loosening, he gave John one last hard look before stepping back. "Keep your eyes open," he warned, his voice cold. John nodded quickly, trying to look calm, though sweat poured down his face. The soldiers returned to their vehicle, the engines rumbling back into the storm-soaked night. John shut the door slowly, his hands trembling. He leaned against it, breathing hard. Lyra uncovered herself, her silver eyes wide. "They know," she whispered, her voice trembling. "They will come again." John rubbed his face, trying to think. He had never lied so boldly in his life. And now, his farm, his quiet world, was no longer safe. He looked at Lyra, at the fragile way she sat in the hay, her wounds glowing faint blue. She did not belong here, and yet she was now bound to his fate. "I can't protect you here," John said firmly. "You need to leave. We both do." Lyra shook her head, struggling to rise. "No, I cannot leave Earth," she whispered. Her voice carried weight, a truth too heavy for him to understand. She reached for the broken metal shard nearby, her hand glowing as she touched it. The shard lit up, projecting a faint image into the air. John gasped. It was a map star scattered across the barn wall like diamonds. Red marks glowed in clusters, and one of them pulsed over Earth. Lyra's voice shook as she explained. "They are hunters. They follow. They destroy." She pointed to the glowing mark. "They are here, hidden already." John stared at the map, his stomach twisting. Aliens already on Earth, searching, hunting, not just her, but perhaps something greater, he whispered. "Why you?" Lyra's eyes softened, but sorrow darkened them. "I carry knowledge. They must not take," she said. John could see her fear, not only for herself, but for everyone. If she was caught, it would not just be her end, it could be Earth's. Suddenly, a sound broke the moment, a dog barking wildly in the distance. Then a gunshot cracking through the night. Lyra flinched, clutching her chest. John grabbed his lantern and peeked through a gap in the barn wall. Dark figures were moving across the fields again. More of them this time. They swept the land with flashlights, their voices harsh in the night air. "They are closing in," Lyra whispered. John's heart pounded. He had no plan, no weapon, only desperation. "Can you walk?" he asked quickly. Lyra nodded weakly, though pain shone in her face. John helped her stand, her weight light in his arms. "We have to go, now," he said. He opened the back door of the barn, leading her into the shadows of the trees. The night was thick, the wet ground soft beneath their boots. Every step felt like thunder in his ears. Behind them, flashlights swept closer. Beams cutting through the darkness, the hunters were tracking them, their voices carrying across the field. Lyra stumbled and John caught her, whispering. Just a little farther, they pushed through the woods. Branches clawing at their clothes. The sounds of pursuit grew louder, crackling radios. Snapping twigs, the heavy crunch of boots. John's breath burned in his chest, fear pushing him forward. They reached the edge of a small creek, the water rushing wild from the storm. John helped Lyra across, but as he did, he heard a shout behind them. A flashlight beam caught his shoulder. Voices roared. "There! They're there!" Gunfire erupted, tearing through the night, bullets slamming into trees. John ducked, dragging Lyra into the mud, his heart hammering like a drum. They crawled through the undergrowth. Water soaking them, dirt clinging to their hands. The forest became a cage of shadows. Every rustle a threat, every breath a gamble, at last. They stumbled into an old hunting cabin, half broken, forgotten in the woods. John kicked the door open and pulled Lyra inside. Shutting it fast, the cabin smelled of rot and dust, but it was shelter. He pressed her down onto a broken chair, his hands shaking. "We can't keep running like this," he whispered. More to himself than to her, Lyra looked at him, her eyes glowing faintly in the dark. "You saved me," she said softly. John shook his head, anger and fear mixing inside him. "No, I just put us both in danger," he muttered. But Lyra's gaze held him, steady and sure. "Kindness is never weakness," she whispered. Before John could answer, the cabin walls shook. A heavy thud echoed outside, then another. Something larger than men was moving in the woods. John's breath caught through the cracked window. He saw a figure, a shadow, too tall, too twisted, its shape not human at all. The hunters had found them, and this time, they were not hiding their true form. The cabin shook again, the rotten wood groaning under the impact. John grabbed an old axe from the corner, his hands trembling but his grip tight. Lyra sat weakly on the broken chair, her glowing eyes fixed on the door. Her voice was low, urgent. "They have found us." John's throat went dry. He had never faced anything like this, and yet he knew there was no choice but to stand. The door shuddered as claws scraped across it, not human hands, something longer. Sharper, tearing into the old wood, a chilling growl echoed, mixed with the faint static of a radio, then silence. The silence was worse than the noise. Heavy and waiting, John raised the axe higher. His body shaking, suddenly the wall burst inward. Splinters flying across the room, a figure stepped through the broken planks, its body hidden by a soldier's uniform. But as it moved closer, its skin rippled, twisting, peeling back the disguise. John's eyes widened in horror. The thing was no man. Its face split open into mandibles, glowing veins running down its dark body, eyes burning like coals. Its voice was layered. Human words mixed with alien sound. "Give her to us," it demanded. John tightened his grip on the axe. He wanted to run, but his legs rooted him to the ground. Behind him, Lyra rose slowly, her body glowing brighter in the dark cabin. The alien hissed, its mandibles snapping at the sight of her. "You cannot hide," it growled. "She belongs to us," John shouted back without thinking. "She belongs to no one," the alien roared. Charging forward with terrifying speed, John swung the axe wildly, the blade striking the creature's arm. Sparks flew as metal-like skin met steel. The force knocked John backward. Crashing into the wall, the alien raised its claw, ready to strike him down. But then, light filled the cabin. Lyra lifted her hand. Glowing lines racing up her arm. A pulse of silver energy shot out, slamming into the alien's chest. The creature screamed, its body thrown across the room. Smashing into the far wall, the cabin shook from the impact, dust raining from the ceiling. John scrambled up, staring in shock at Lyra. Her eyes burned with light, but her body trembled with weakness. She swayed, nearly collapsing. John caught her just in time, feeling her cold skin against his hands. That power, he whispered. Lyra shook her head, her voice broken. Too much. I cannot hold it. Her glow dimmed, her strength fading fast. The alien, wounded but not dead, rose again, its body smoking. It snarled, hatred pouring from its twisted form. You cannot protect her, it growled. Others are coming. Then it leaped back through the broken wall. Vanishing into the forest, the sound of snapping branches echoed as it fled into the night. John's chest heaved, his heart racing. They had survived, but barely. He looked down at Lyra, still trembling in his arms. You saved me, he whispered. Her eyes fluttered open, weak but steady. I saved us both, she said. Her voice little more than a breath. Her words struck him deep. This was no ordinary stranger he had taken in. She was carrying a fight far bigger than either of them. John knew then that running would never be enough. The hunters would keep coming. Stronger, faster, more ruthless. His farm, his town. His whole world was now on their path, and he could not pretend it was just her battle anymore. He carried her out of the broken cabin into the night. The forest was quiet, but it was the kind of quiet that follows a predator. He looked up at the sky through the broken clouds. For a moment, he swore he saw a faint glow, like ships hidden among the stars. His stomach turned, if more of them were waiting above. Earth was already under their shadow. Back at the edge of the woods, John guided Lyra toward the road. Her steps were weak, but she pushed forward. Her will stronger than her body, she whispered softly. Almost to herself, they will not stop. Not until I am taken. John clenched his jaw, shaking his head. Then they'll have to go through me first, he said firmly. The words surprised even him, but they felt true. Lyra glanced at him, her eyes softening human courage. She whispered, almost like it was something sacred. In the distance, faint headlights glowed. More vehicles rolling slowly down the dirt road. John pulled Lyra back into the shadows. His mind racing, he could not face them alone. Not like this, but who could he trust? The police, the government. The neighbors, any of them, could already be controlled. For the first time, John felt truly small. A single man against forces far beyond Earth, and yet a single man was all she had. The night closed in again, heavy and endless. John and Lyra moved quietly through the trees. Every sound a threat, every shadow a warning behind them. The ruined cabin stood as proof that the hunters had revealed themselves at last. No more disguises, no more half-truths. The war had stepped into the open, and John Miller, a farmer who once lived a quiet life, now carried the fate of something far greater than himself. The night stretched long as John and Lyra walked deeper into the forest. The air was cold, their steps heavy, the world around them too quiet. John carried a small lantern, its glow faint. Guiding their path through the trees, every sound made his heart jump. The crack of a branch, the cry of an owl, the rustle of leaves. He knew the hunters were still out there, watching, waiting, but he also knew he needed answers. The time for silence was over. At last, they reached a clearing. The moonlight spilling down on broken stones. Lyra sank to the ground, her strength fading. John sat beside her, his eyes full of questions. "Who are you really?" he asked softly. "And why are they after you?" Lyra was silent for a long moment, her silver eyes reflecting the pale light when she spoke. Her voice was steady, but filled with sorrow. "My people. We are called the Illyrians," she whispered. "Long ago, we traveled across the stars, searching for worlds not to conquer, but to protect." Her hand trembled as she touched the glowing lines on her arm. "We came to Earth once. Long before your history was written." John's breath caught. "You mean?" "Your kind has been here before." Lyra nodded slowly. "Your ancestors saw us as spirits, as gods of the sky, but we never wanted worship. Only peace." Her eyes grew distant, as if she could see across time. "For centuries, we watched from afar, hoping your people would grow strong. Hoping you would never face what we faced." John leaned closer, his voice low. "And the hunters? Who are they?" Lyra's expression darkened, her glow dimming. "They are called the Vair," she whispered. "Destroyers, slavers, shadows among the stars." Her voice cracked. But she continued, "They come to bend worlds under their will, to erase all who resist." John felt a chill crawl through him. "And they're here, on Earth," he muttered. Lyra nodded, her face pale. "Yes. They hide among you, wearing human faces, watching. Searching for me." Her voice shook as she added, "If they capture me, they will take what I know. And Earth will fall before it even has a chance to fight." John clenched his fists, anger burning in his chest. He looked at her fragile frame, at the wounds glowing faintly. "And what is it you know?" he asked. Lyra's eyes met his, full of pain and truth. "I am the last heir of Illyria," she whispered. "My people are gone, destroyed by the Vair. But I carry within me the knowledge of our defenses, the codes of our ships, the secrets that could free or doom entire worlds." John's breath caught. She was not just an injured stranger in his barn. She was the last of her kind, carrying a burden too heavy for anyone. "Why tell me?" he asked, his voice rough. "Because you chose kindness," she said softly. "You could have left me to die, but you didn't, and now? You are part of this whether you wish it or not." The words weighed on John like chains. He had never thought his life could matter beyond his farm, his small town, but now he was tied to the fate of Earth itself. Lyra reached into her torn armor and pulled out a small crystal, glowing faint blue. "This is what they seek," she whispered. "It holds the memory of Illyria, the last record of my people, and the key to resisting the Vair." John stared at the crystal, its light reflecting in his eyes. It was beautiful, but it felt dangerous, alive with something far beyond human understanding. "If they get it," Lyra continued, "Earth will be enslaved. Just as Illyria was destroyed." Her voice broke, her shoulders shaking with grief she could no longer hide. John placed a hand gently on her arm. "I don't know how to fight them," he admitted, "but I won't let them take you." Lyra looked at him, her eyes wet with silver tears. "Humans. Always surprising," she whispered. Her hand closed around the crystal, holding it tight. "Perhaps this is why we once believed in you." Before John could speak, a sudden crack echoed in the distance, a tree falling, footsteps rushing, voices calling. The hunters were closing in again. Faster this time, angrier. John's heart raced. "We have to move," he said urgently. But Lyra shook her head, her strength fading. "I cannot run much longer." John pulled her to her feet, supporting her weight. "You don't have to," he said firmly. "I'll get us through this." But inside, fear twisted in him. He was only one man, facing enemies that weren't even human. Still, he refused to let go as they stumbled into the trees again. The night seemed to close around them. The glow of the crystal in Lyra's hands was both a light and a beacon. It might save them, or it might draw the hunters closer. John didn't know, but he knew one thing with certainty. The truth of Lyra's people had changed everything. This was no longer about survival alone. It was about the future of Earth itself. The forest stretched endless, dark and heavy with mist. John's arms ached from supporting Lyra, but he refused to let her fall. Every step was harder. Every sound around them a warning. The hunters were still close, their voices echoing faint through the trees. But now another thought gnawed at him. Heavier than the fear, he could not do this alone. By dawn, they reached the edge of the woods. In the distance, an old farmhouse stood, quiet and half abandoned. But beyond it, down the road, John saw the lights of a small town. Civilization meant safety, but also questions if he brought Lyra there. Someone would notice her glowing skin, her strange wounds, and if the wrong people saw her, it would all be over. Lyra sank to the ground, clutching the crystal close to her chest. Her voice was weak, but her eyes still burned with purpose. "You cannot protect me alone," she whispered. John knelt beside her, his hands gripping his knees. "I know," he admitted, "but who can I trust?" Her gaze held his, steady and unblinking. "You must choose your own kind," she said softly. "Some will fear me, some will betray me, but some may stand with you." John thought of his old military friend, Daniel Hayes, a man he hadn't spoken to in years. Daniel had once saved his life overseas, before John returned to farming. If anyone could be trusted, maybe it was him. John made his choice. He helped Lyra to her feet, guiding her carefully down the road. Every car that passed made his chest tighten. Every shadow made him wonder if the hunters walked among them in human faces. At last, he reached a small gas station with a payphone outside. He picked up the receiver, his hands shaking, and dialed Daniel's number. The phone rang once, twice, 3 times. Then a rough voice answered. "Hayes here." John hesitated, his throat dry. "Daniel." "It's me, John." There was silence, then a sharp laugh. "Well, I'll be damned," Daniel said. "It's been years." "What's going on?" John lowered his voice. Glancing at Lyra hiding in the shadows, "I need your help," he said firmly. "Something's happening, something big, and I can't explain it all here." Daniel paused, his tone turning serious. "Where are you?" he asked. John gave him the name of a back road near the farm. "Don't tell anyone else," John warned. "Just you," Daniel agreed without hesitation. An hour later, a truck pulled up. Headlights dim, Daniel Hayes stepped out. Tall, broad-shouldered, his hair streaked with gray. He looked at John with suspicion and relief all at once. "You sound like hell," Daniel said. "What trouble have you dragged me into this time?" John motioned him closer. "Not here." Inside, he muttered. Guiding him into the barn they had reached, Daniel froze when he saw Lyra. His hand instinctively went to his sidearm. "What in God's name?" he whispered. Lyra's eyes glowed faintly in the dark, her silver tears shimmering. John raised his hands quickly. "She's not here to hurt us." Daniel's jaw tightened, but he lowered his weapon. "You better start talking," he said. John explained everything: the storm, the hunters, the alien reveal. The crystal. His words tumbled out, broken and desperate. Daniel listened, his face unreadable. When John finished, silence filled the barn. Finally, Daniel said, "Do you know what you're asking me?" John shook his head. "I'm asking you to trust me," he said simply. Daniel exhaled sharply. "You always had a way of finding trouble," he muttered, "and somehow making me follow you into it." Lyra stepped forward, her voice calm despite her weakness. "Your world is in danger," she said. "If you choose fear, you will lose it without a fight. Daniel stared at her for a long time, then finally nodded. "All right," he said. "I'll help. But we'll need more than just the three of us." John's relief was brief. Lyra's expression darkened as she clutched the crystal. "There is something you must know," she whispered. Both men leaned closer. Lyra's voice trembled as she spoke. "This crystal. It is not only a weapon, it is a key." Her silver eyes glistened with pain. "It can unlock the Illyrian defenses hidden in orbit, but if used wrong, it could also open a path for the Vair." John's chest tightened. "So it can save us, or doom us," he said. Lyra nodded, tears slipping down her cheeks. "My people built it as hope. But the Vair twisted our creations before." Her voice broke as she whispered. "If I fail, Earth will share Illyria's fate." The barn fell into silence. Heavy with the weight of her words, Daniel rubbed his face, muttering, "So, it comes down to us, doesn't it?" John looked at him, his jaw set. "It comes down to all of humanity," he said firmly. "But for now, it starts with us, outside." Thunder rumbled again, though the sky was clear. John stepped to the door and looked out. His heart sinking above the horizon, faint glimmers moved among the stars. Not planes, not satellite ships entering Earth's orbit. "They're already here," John whispered. Lyra closed her eyes, clutching the crystal tighter. "The choice is now," she said. Her voice filled with sorrow and strength. "Will humanity stand? Or will it fall?" The night sky burned with unnatural light. Ships hovered above Earth, their dark shapes blotting out the stars. John stood in the field with Daniel and Lyra. Watching in silence, the air vibrated with a low hum. The sound of engines not built by human hands for the first time. John felt the weight of the universe pressing down on his small world. Lyra clutched the crystal, its blue glow pulsing like a heartbeat. Her voice was steady, though her body trembled. "They are ready to strike," she whispered. "If we use the crystal now, we can call the Illyrian defenses hidden in orbit." John turned to her sharply. "You said it could also open the way for them." Lyra nodded. Her silver eyes filled with sorrow. "Yes, one mistake, and Earth will fall faster than Illyria did." Daniel checked his rifle. His jaw set hard. "So what do we do? Wait here and let them come," he muttered. "No," John said firmly. He looked at Lyra. Then at the small town lights in the distance. "Humans don't just give up." "Not when it matters," Daniel smirked grimly. "You've still got that stubborn streak." Moments later, the first attack came. Blinding beams of light lanced down from the sky. Striking fields and forests, the ground shook. Barns and houses burst into flames. People screamed in the distance. John's heart clenched. His world was burning. The hunters were no longer hiding. They were taking Earth by force. John turned to Lyra. "Now? Do it now," he shouted. Lyra raised the crystal high, light spilling out in waves of silver and blue. The air cracked like thunder as the glow spread across the sky. For a moment, silence fell. Then new shapes appeared above Sleek. Silver ships hidden for centuries. Awakening at her call, the Illyrian defenses. The last memory of her people, the Vair ships roared in fury, their dark hulls clashing against the silver light. The battle in the sky began, beams of energy cutting across the heavens. Earth shook as the clash of two alien powers raged above. But on the ground, the hunters were already moving. Figures twisted out of human disguise, their monstrous forms rushing toward the fields. John grabbed his axe. Daniel raised his rifle. And together they stood in the dirt. The creatures charged, their claws gleaming, their roars shaking the night. John swung with all his strength, the axe biting deep into one alien's chest. Daniel's rifle barked fire, dropping another, but more came. Endless, relentless, Lyra fell to her knees. Her body glowing brighter, she poured her life into the crystal, guiding the Illyrian ships above. Her voice rang out in alien words, sharp and beautiful. The crystal pulsed stronger, brighter, but her strength drained with every second. John fought his way back to her, panting, blood on his hands. "You can't do this alone," he shouted. She looked at him, her face pale but fierce. "You are with me," she whispered. "And that is enough." The ground split as one of the larger hunters stepped forward, towering, armored in black metal. It hissed, mandibles snapping, its voice a guttural growl. "Earth is ours," it declared. John raised his axe. Though fear gripped him like ice, "Not while I'm still breathing," he growled back. The creature lunged, but before it could strike, Lyra screamed. Her body flared with light so bright it blinded them all. The crystal erupted, sending a wave of silver energy across the field. The hunters shrieked as the light burned through them, their forms breaking apart into ash and shadow. The Great One roared in defiance before collapsing into dust. John stumbled to Lyra's side. His heart breaking, she lay in the grass. The crystal dark now, her glow fading. "Stay with me," John begged. Holding her hand, her eyes fluttered open, weak but still shining faintly. "You gave them a chance," she whispered. "Your people. They will rise." Tears blurred John's vision. "You're not leaving me," he said fiercely. Lyra smiled faintly, silver tears running down her cheeks. "My people are gone, but in you. We live on." Her hand grew cold in his, her light dimming until only the stars above remained. The sky was quiet again, the Illyrian ships victorious. The Veer retreating into the void. Earth had survived, but at a cost that cut deep into John's soul. Daniel placed a hand on John's shoulder, silent, his face grim. John rose slowly, staring at the horizon where fire and smoke still lingered. The world would never be the same. The secret of the stars had been revealed, and humanity had fought back. He looked down at the crystal. Now dull in his hand, it was heavy. But it carried hope, Lyra's sacrifice, her trust. Her belief in humanity. John clenched it tight, his jaw set. He whispered to the night, "Kindness was our weapon." And it was enough. Above, the dawn broke through the clouds, painting the sky in light for the first time. John did not fear the stars. He looked at them with determination, knowing Earth had stepped into a larger world. And though he was only one man, he knew the fight for tomorrow had just begun.